Yes, so STP is one of these incredibly difficult to understand NHS acronyms. We like to put little names for things in the NHS so that it's difficult for people to understand, but really it's STP stands for Sustainability and Transformational Partnership. But really it's about all the different organisations in the NHS working together to improve services and to make things work better together.
So what will it be like in the future? How will it affect us in the future?
Really great question, and there's lots of aspects to that. So the NHS has never stood still. So next year will be the 70th birthday of the National Health Service, and in that time it's had to change and adapt all the time. It's quite difficult to say how the NHS will look different in 20 years' time because there's so much modern technology that's changed, there's so many things that could be possible, but we can only make them happen by working together. So for example, at the moment, most of your interaction with healthcare services will either be in person or you might get a letter in the post giving you an appointment for to go to see a doctor or to see a nurse. We want to see in the future that all of that makes the best use of digital technology so that you can have your online health account, so that you can see your health records wherever you go, you can take them with you. All the different doctors and nurses or health professionals who are involved in your care can see the same set of notes, because at the moment they can't do that. You can add updates to them themselves. If you've got maybe some skin condition and it gets worse, you might be able to take a picture and send it to your doctor so that you don't actually have to physically go and make an appointment and wait in line. So that's just one of the aspects of how healthcare could and should be better in the future. So being able to make the best of all of those different digital technology, and who knows what we can do in 10 or 20 years' time.
So obviously on the news we haven't really heard about this. Is there a reason behind why we haven't heard?
I think the main reason is because it's quite complex and difficult to understand, and it doesn't make for a good soundbite. So quite often people think about the NHS as one thing. So most people could, think of the National Health Service is all one organisation and everybody just works as part of that organisation. Whereas in reality, actually, it's made up of hundreds of different organisations. So you have what's called clinical commissioning groups who get the money and allocate the money. You have different provider organisations, hospitals, GPs, community services organisations, mental health service providers, who are all different individual organisations who get given a portion of money to provide certain services. So when you have all those different bits of the puzzle, it makes changing anything quite difficult, because you've got to get all of those organisations to work together, not just one organisation. So the main focus of this STP is just about getting all those organisations to work together. So that's not necessarily particularly newsworthy, because people are not necessarily, they expect that to be happening anyway. But actually it's really complex and really difficult, because you're working with different organisational cultures and everybody's used to doing things in a slightly different way. And then when you add into that not just the health service, you also have social care, which is provided by local councils. It's funded in a different way, it's got different people working on providing it, and they all need to be part of the answer as well.
Yeah.
So you have to bring all of those elements together and get all of those people in the room and get them to talk to each other, to trust each other, to learn how to work in slightly different ways. And really that's the key to what we're doing, and we want to try and tell as many people as possible about it.
Do you think that the NHS is falling away from the more human aspect of care and going more towards the business?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I think the people who work in the NHS, the people who are at the front line, so the nurses and the doctors and the paramedics and those people who provide care, they do it because they love it and they do it because they want to help people. If you ask anyone who's gone into any career in the NHS, that's why they're there. And sometimes some of the other bits get in the way of that. And the way in which the NHS is structured at the moment, as I sort of explained to you before, with all the different organisations having to buy bits of services from other parts of organisations, some of that sometimes gets in the way. But actually the experience that I hear about from people day to day is of that same ethos of caring and providing, and there's a really strong sense from everyone who works in the NHS in whichever function that we're there to provide a public good for the people, and that's why people want to work in the NHS. That's why they're so proud of it and want to defend it so fiercely, because actually that's something that if you ask anyone in this country, they're really, really proud of the fact that we have a National Health Service that you don't necessarily find in lots of other parts of the world. And I think that ethos is really, really, really strong, and we just need to make sure that that's what comes out at the front, and not necessarily all the managers speak from people like me who are working in the background trying to make all the sums add up and trying to make all the right bits of care be in the right places.
Over recent years, you've retracted funding from sexual health services in my area. What sort of impact do you think that'll have on people?
What I was talking about in the previous bit before about trade-offs and changes, it's that the organisations need to look at how they spend money, and sometimes it's not just about the amount of money that's spent, but actually how that money gets spent, because there might be a way to spend it better, there might be a way for different people to spend the money in a different way. So I don't know the individual details, what you're talking, the particular services you're talking about, but clearly it's really important that the money's going into services at the right end. So where most of the money in NHS services goes at the moment is in treating ill health, but actually where the money should be going is into prevention, and so sexual health services, all the kind of wider public health services, things that promote people to live healthier lifestyles. It's really, really, really important, because obviously if you can prevent some of those people getting those illnesses in the first place, then actually that will help us to make some of the gains and some of the savings. So those are the kinds of services that we need to be investing in. The challenge is to find a way to get the money out of the really expensive acute services that will continue. So things like accident emergency, people turning up when because they just don't have anywhere else to go, particularly older, frail people who and we need to provide alternatives for that so that we can free up the resources to fund the preventative type things we're talking about, because they are so important.
Do you know which services are going to work with who? Like, who's going to work with who?
That is actually a really good question, because there's some of those conversations that are happening at the moment amongst some of the kind of chief executives and the leaders of different organisations, because there's some things that we need to work on across a big footprint. So the Humber Close and Vale, which is an area that no one's ever heard of because we've just made it up. But basically it's Hull, the whole of East Riding, York, Scarborough, and kind of bits around about there, as well as northern Lincolnshire, so Scunthorpe and Grimsby and all the kind of areas that surround those places. Some of the services that we're looking at, we need to look at across that whole area. And that doesn't mean we provide them in one place for the whole area, but actually means that the organisations need to work together. So that's the three big hospital providers need to work together. But on other things, like sexual health services or the GP kind of general practice stuff, it doesn't make sense to work across that massive area, because actually they're provided in each individual local community. So actually it's about smaller areas, and so depending on the service will depend who works together and what. And some of those we're trying to kind of clarify exactly what fits in which box at the moment, and that's some of the conversations that are happening amongst those leaders at the moment. Because it's really important that we get things in the right box.
How do you plan to close the gap between paediatric and adult services without relying on charities such as like Teenage Cancer Trust to provide they have a service in Castle Hill at the moment to try and bridge that gap, because it kind of feels like you get dropped and then you get thrown in at the deep end.
There's definitely been a recognition in the last 4 or 5 years of the importance of actually looking at that transition from being a child to being an adult. And so in terms of local authority services, so things that the councils provide, they now have responsibility for children right up to, and young adults right up until 25. So that cliff edge in theory isn't there anymore. And obviously there's a lot of changes and a lot of things that have to happen to make that into reality. Because you don't stop being a child when you become an adult the next. It's not, it would be much better if it was that simple. It's really not. And actually we need to make sure that is also reflected in sort of healthcare provision as well, and looking at young adults as a particular group with really specific needs, and making sure that we adapt our services to fit them. So I think that's a really important question to ask, and I think we should keep asking it. and we'll make sure that it gets asked of the right people so that they're considering that in some of the changes that they're making.
I'm finding it really difficult to figure out what practice provides what service when it comes to sexual health. And it takes a lot of legwork and a lot of actually having to go to places or make phone calls to find out what they actually do. You don't have a directory of you can go here for this, you can go here for that. It's all very complicated. Are you trying to fix that all?
Absolutely, that's one of the key kind of core principles of the working together in this Humber Coast and Vale STP is actually to try and make things less complicated, because they're just too confusing at the moment. The challenge is, if the NHS was one big organisation, we could do it tomorrow, because we'd just say, this is what happens here, 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 and here. But in reality, the general practice, so your GP practice, is an independent business, completely separate from another independent business, which is the GP practice over here, which is also separate from the community service provider, who might also be doing a bit of that. And so that's why this process is quite time-consuming and complicated, and it involves lots of people working together in ways that we didn't before. But the key aim, the thing that we're all working towards, is having that much simpler system. So whether it's a directory of services, whether it's one single number that you phone up for everything, whether it's GP appointment or a hospital appointment or sexual health appointment, whatever it is, there's one number that you talk about, one website, because you're going to want a website, not a phone number, depending on your generation preferences and whatnot. So that's the vision, but it's going to take a lot of steps to get there.
So us as teenagers, how can we find out how to get involved with all these different services? Is there a way that we can get involved?
So there's lots of different ways. Again, we like to make things complicated. And actually, well, one of the really important things you can do, which is speak to local Healthwatch, because they are there to represent your voices, and they're there to give those opportunities. Each of the organisations that's part of this STP partnership have got people who work in engagement, and their job is to make sure that we're talking to and engaging with everybody who uses the services. And so we will hold more conversation events, we'll have online surveys, we'll have all these different things as we go along through the process. And that will be up to those local organisations to make some of that happen. Best way you can keep in touch with what's happening across the whole of the STP is on our website, or you can follow us on Twitter. And hopefully soon we'll have a Facebook page as well. But I think the key thing is just about keeping in touch with what's happening, and we'll make sure that we try and put out as much information as we can. You can find out more about our newsletter on the website, which is humbercoastandvale.org.uk, and all the information for signing up to get alerts about events and things like that.